We're going for a countdown. 3,
2. All right, welcome to the channel, Mindful Meatheads. Welcome to our first episode. We got me, the host, Caleb Sachs, and we
Uncle
got
Berg.
Uncle Berg, Jordan Berger here, helping me out today recording this. We also got Sean back in our place. He's a little bit busy right now, but you guys are going to get to know him. So welcome to the channel. A brief intro into the channel is our goal, me and Sean, you guys will meet Sean in the next video. We're trying to create a community of people that understand that living a healthy lifestyle is so much more than just going to the gym, working out, getting good sleep, eating right, but also there's this whole other aspect of it where there's mental health, something that we don't really talk about. So do you have anything to say on that, Jordan?
I think that was a great introduction, I think it's a good segue into talking about the type of issues, the contemporary issues that's happening in the Western civilization right now. So if you want to give an introduction to that, then we can get into it.
Right. So I think it's pretty clear that when we think healthy, living a healthy, happy life, we immediately think, oh, someone that works out a lot, maybe they do a little bit of yoga, they get enough sleep, they go on runs, they lift weights. But then there's also this other aspect of living a healthy, happy life that we just don't really talk about, similar to what Jordan was just saying. For some reason, we have this negative stigma around the idea of living a mindful or just solely focusing our lives on achieving this idea of finding our happiness.
Yeah, I mean, something that I've struggled with, my whole entire life up until, I think coming to college, or really when quarantine hit, actually, was this idea of what life should be instead of what I want life to be. And I think that all comes from this one path that you set at the start since your childhood. When you're born, your parents influence you ways and that you have to sort of follow. You're kind of brainwashed into thinking certain ways, which is fine, but you're never able to really start with a blank slate. And with that, you're just always on this one path, and a path that you may not even want. And I think with that, it doesn't really fit a lot of people's wants in life, and creates a lot of this anxiousness, a lot of this depression, a lot of the issues that Gen Z is having nowadays.
Right. So one thing that I noticed when I came to school out here in Boulder, Colorado, was I would just start talking to kids in my age group as I was meeting everyone, and either they can't, or everyone came to Boulder pretty much for the same reason. Either you're an in-state kid and you wanted in-state tuition, or you're an out-of-state kid and they were getting away from something back at their home. And the first thing that came to my mind is yeah, me too. I wanted to separate myself from this environment back in my home that I didn't think was really attributing to any of my happiness. So I came here to Boulder, Colorado, where the atmosphere people know is just a happier, more relaxed lifestyle. Boulder was actually just ranked one of the happiest, actually the happiest town in America. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think that people here especially understand the idea that, we're happy when we spend time with people. We're happy when we influence each other and support each other and do these things. And happiness isn't just this thing that we're chasing, So this brings me into my next subject. My next topic is people think that happiness, once I get this promotion, once I get this much money, then I'll be happy. Once I hook up with this many girls, for example, just something that I hear all the time throughout our age group, is going to bring you happiness, but it's not. And that's just the reality of it. One of the things that really got me thinking about this whole and kind of shot me on my journey towards my mindfulness practices is I heard Jim Carrey. Everyone knows the funny actor Jim Carrey, but people think he's kind of a hippie and maybe a weirdo now because he has these abstract ideas, but I really don't think he's a hippie at all. Sorry, he is a hippie, but I don't think he's weird at all. If anything, he's what we call woke. He understands, and he said this in one of his interviews, is we think that we have control over our own thoughts, but we really don't. See, if you had control of your own thoughts, then tell me, what are you about to think? What's your next thought going to be? You can't.
You can't.
Exactly. See, that right there, I hope that you guys just thought about that for a second. You cannot control your own thoughts. And this is the idea of mindfulness. Do you have anything to add?
So I guess that brings me to a question. What exactly does being mindful mean, and how would you tell the people listening to this to be mindful?
Right. So I think that a good way, being mindful is just being aware. I think it's just another way of us saying that we want to be more aware. And it's talked about in the Buddhist religion, and just it's getting more westernized, but for some reason it's not like normal or talked about in our generation. If anything, like kids our age were like, you meditate? Like what? That's weird, when it really shouldn't be like that. If I told someone that I work out, they'd be like, oh, that's cool, that's awesome, you're building your muscle, you're building your body,
building your mental health.
But why can't I tell someone that I'm meditating to build my mental health?
I also think like a huge thing about mindfulness, I'm also going on this meditation journey as Caleb is as well. And some of the things that it's talked about, or our teacher is talking about, is being mindful and how to be mindful. And one of the biggest things he says is being aware of what's going on, like as you're living in the present. So he talks about like you never really think about like standing up or sitting down. He gave us this exercise. Whenever you stand up or sit down, you like literally tell yourself, oh, I'm standing up, oh, I'm sitting down. And like slowly, I know it sounds very easy, but I've been trying to do this for the past
harder.
I've been trying to do this for the past week now and haven't done it one day.
Yep.
Me too. It's so hard to retrain yourself into like honestly, like, in a way, it's like beating the system, beating what you like your biological like DNA it like sets out for you, and what this whole path sets out for you, like this whole idea of being mindful is literally changing the way you think and recreating yourself, which I think is like really, really hard to do.
Right.
Obviously.
So a good way to think about it is when we get anxious, generally we're focused on the future. So a famous Zen Buddhist, I forgot his name, my apologies, once said that if you're focusing on the future, then you will be anxious. If you're focused on the past, then you will be depressed. But if you focus on the present, then you will be at peace.
That is my favorite quote.
My favorite quote, because it makes sense.
My favorite quote of
when
all
you
time.
think about it, I mean, take a minute to think about this. Anything that's going to cause you any anxiety is because you're focused on what may or what will happen. Anything that you're getting upset about is because, oh, I didn't do this, or I should have did this, or this happened and I'm upset about it, which is all okay. Of course we're going to get anxious. Of course we're going to be depressed. We're human. But the best way to combat this is just to focus on the present. So that is what meditation is. Meditation is working out similar to how if I told you I wanted bigger biceps, I would do a bicep curl. If I want a calm, happier mind, I'll meditate. The idea of meditation is you sit down in a comfortable position. People think you have to sit like this. I mean, maybe that helps. They have some research that says it does. But overall, it's just sitting down in a quiet place where you can close your eyes and focus on your breath. You're supposed to take 10 to 20 minutes a day, ideally 20, where you just breathe in and out. Count 1 with the in-breath, 2 with the out-breath, and you repeat this to a count of 10, and you go back and forth.
I think if you really think about when the last time you like sat down and literally just done nothing with your life, I can't even think about the last time besides when I meditate. I think people like, especially in today's day and age when we have like, these fucking phones that are, we're just on constantly. We just like train our brains to like to always be on them.
Yeah,
and
to constantly be distracted. That's our biggest thing. We're always going. Always going.
Especially being in college
down.
Too.
Right.
So if you give yourself that start with 5 minutes, start with 10 minutes, whatever it is. And if you like start to like get into this new habit of being mindful, of being present within your time, you can start to train yourself to be a little bit less anxious. And even if you do get anxious, that's totally completely fine. But you take it, you note it, and then you kind of you move on with your day. You don't let that emotion ruin your whole entire day. And I'll let Caleb talk for a little bit. But
right.
I have this quote that I want to find, or not this quote, actually I found it. So I was meditating a couple days ago, and I was struggling with a little bit of anxiety and depression. And I wrote this down, and I'll read it. So emotions can control your body and sometimes affect your whole day. Sometimes your emotions are logical and sometimes they aren't. For an emotion to be alive and flow through your body, it needs fuel. That fuel is what we call thought. If you don't want that emotion to control you, learn to control your thoughts so you can give it as much or as little fuel as you would like. Acknowledge how you feel and move on with your day. You know, like when I wrote that down, I think all of my anxiety went away in like the snap of my fingers. You know, when you really learn what anxiety is and you really learn that it's just like your thoughts that are attacking you, and you know, I think like thinking is sometimes your worst enemy. You know, you always think about the future, what can come, and it's just like it really screws with your brain and like how you act during the whole entire day. And if you can learn how to minimize and give like a little bit less fuel to that emotion, you can like start to rewire your brain into becoming a little bit less anxious and to start thinking more in the present and being more mindful in the present. So
Right. So the idea is when you're meditating and you're taking your breaths, you'll realize it is guaranteed that you will get distracted. A lot of times, it's going to be really annoying, especially when you first start. But the cool thing is, instead of getting upset, why aren't I getting good at this? Why aren't I mastering it? You can just sit there and acknowledge it. You can see, oh my God, I'm getting a thought here, 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 here. It's coming all over the place. This one's depressed. This one's anxious. This one's excited. And then you start to realize, I'm not even doing anything, and I'm just getting these thoughts. And then you see that these thoughts aren't you. I'm not saying that it's God or some greater power, but maybe it's just something going on in your head. It's your subconscious that just sends these thoughts. But we, humans, have the ability to say, I understand that maybe I'm getting a little bit anxious right now. This anxious thought keeps hitting my head and telling me to be upset about something. But now, since I've meditated and I've practiced, I can say, and I can note it, I can say, this is an anxious thought. I get this one a lot. Sometimes my heart beats a little bit quicker when I hear this or when I feel this. My stomach drops. But I can just say to myself, you know, this happens a lot. I'm just going to focus on what's right in front of me. And then it's that idea. So you focus back on the breath, and then that's the meditation practice. That's your workout. Then you go into regular day life. And then you're taking a test, and you're like, oh, I don't remember this. And then you feel your heart beating fast. And then you go, oh, I remember when I get anxious, my heart beats fast. So now I'm just getting this anxious thought. And then you say, okay, I'm just getting a little bit anxious. I'm just going to focus on my test and do as best as I can. And then you're right there. Your anxiety's gone and you're back into it.
you know, meditation isn't just like a thing you do, you know, every other day, every day type thing. It's more of, it teaches you a new way to live. You know, I think growing up, I think all of us, again, going back to that brainwashed idea of how we were born into this like certain path. This really like switches things up and gives you a new way of thinking about life and a new way to live. And so far, you know, I think I started meditating, you know, like about like a year or two ago, but I only really started concentrating on meditating in the past like 2 months. And already I see like a huge difference in my mood and my mental health, like even like day to day, like what Kelly was saying before about, you know, you take what you learn in meditation and you apply it to your regular day life. I've been able to do that. And I think it takes a while for people to get there, and it is hard to get there. It is like an exercise, you know, it is like a bicep curl for your brain. But once you do get there, it is truly like mesmerizing to really understand and see your brain making those new connections and that new way of thinking, which I think is really interesting.
Right. And just a couple other points that I wanted to add is, for some reason, and we said this a couple times already, like this practice, this idea of mindfulness, like in other regions of the world, like it's practiced, but for some reason it's not here. And part of the reason that I wanted to create this channel, Sean and I wanted to create this channel, is we wanted to regulate it. We wanted to make it a norm, you know? It's so normal to go to the gym every day, to work out every day, you know? People make this a habit. Why isn't it a habit to meditate? You know, we spend so much of our time, like ideally, hopefully, creating a healthy body that we live in. Why wouldn't you create a healthy mind? So then that just segues into my next point, which is just what brings us true happiness, you know? That's a question that we all want to know. And we always hear, oh, money doesn't buy happiness. Some people disagree, some don't. Even though there's literally evidence pointing to the fact that money does not bring happiness. A lot of people think that you need to reach out and get these external goals to be happy. You know, that's what I was saying earlier. But true happiness really does come from within. Ultimately, like, we're all here on earth. No one knows why. Some of us believe in God. Some of us believe in evolution. Some of us, I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm glad like you guys have those beliefs. I'm not here to push any of my beliefs on you. But at the end of the day, we're all here for some reason. We don't really know why. So why wouldn't you just spend your entire life trying to be happy? I mean, that's my mindset.
I mean, I can also speak on that a little bit. Like, I've also like struggled, my whole entire life with that idea of like, like your purpose. And I grew up Jewish, and I went to temple, not very often, but I did go to temple. I celebrated the holidays, and I always asked like my rabbi, I asked my dad, like, like why are we here type thing, and they were never able to give me like a true answer. They're like, oh, like God wants us to be here, or my dad would say like, the Big Bang Theory happened, and just through evolution we came here, which is what I believe. I don't believe in God. But even with that, it's still like, there's no real purpose to us being here. And this is like my optimist side. That's about to talk, but like because we have like no purpose in being here, that doesn't mean that like we have to live a purposeless life. And to that idea of like what brings true happiness, I think it really is like living in the moment. I can really only think back to like times when I'm like really, really happy is when I'm living in the present, when I'm, hanging out with friends, talking without phones, like back to like our natural instinct without technology, without all these like artificial things that, humans create. So I think if people really get on that wave of like living in the present, I think that our generation, Gen Z, will be, a lot happier and a lot more in tune with how people are feeling.
Right. So honestly, if you're going to take away one thing, anything from this podcast, but just one thing, it's stop running for happiness. It's right in front of you. Just open up your eyes.
Wow.
Thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for some future videos, comments, like the video, share it with as many people as you can, and leave some comments about future topics you'd like for us to discuss.